We have David from the Dirty Heads joining us today to talk about all the cool stuff that he's got going with Left Coast Sound. And I wanted to start with sort of the formation of Left Coast Sound, because it's yourself and Jungle Josh, but you guys were in a band called Chapter 11, where he was the drummer, and you sort of you had that musical chemistry. What is it about that musical chemistry that has allowed you guys to sort of keep making music for 2 decades now?
Yeah, I mean, I met Josh, I think in like third or fourth grade, and we've been kind of in and out of each other's lives for a long time. And just out of high school, we started a band, and I think we were DJs back in the day, and I think the common ground that we found, between us was hip hop and reggae, and we had a lot of hip hop records, a lot of reggae records, and so I think. Over the years, we've played with a lot of different musicians, but I think Josh has just been one of my closest musical allies throughout this whole journey. And I think it was just the common love of reggae and hip hop is what kind of brought us back together. And I left Chapter 11, and Josh was still producing music, and then a few years later we kind of rejoined back up, and I think we've been making music ever since. So it's been a really fun creative process.
As a producer and a songwriter, you've collaborated with everybody: Sublime with Rome, Hyrie, Matisyahu, the list goes on, Cashed Out, Sideways, like Joe Samba. What's the secret to connecting with outside artists on a musical level and a creative language that they sort of understand?
So I think it really helps the fact that I'm in Dirty Heads, and we've toured with a lot of these artists that we're producing. So I think that helps. It's the grinding it out on tour all summer long, sweating on stage together. You kind of form a bond with people that are doing the same, that have the same trajectory in life as you do. So I think it's kind of easy when you're just kind of hanging out backstage, kind of bored, killing time, to, cruise into another dressing room and strike up a conversation. And, a lot of artists, they're always kind of writing and recording, getting ready for the next album. And so you just kind of say, hey, I produce music as well. And, I send them a SoundCloud link, and it's kind of off to the races from there. It's probably a lot easier than just kind of cold calling artists or sending a DM or a random email, and you don't get really far doing that. So it's kind of nice to become friends with all these artists first, and then once they find out that you produce, it's a little bit easier.
So you connecting with them on the personal level first, I guess, and foremost?
Oh yeah, a lot of these artists, I've got their number in my phone, so it's just, hey, we're going to be at this festival. Oh yeah, us too, and then you send them a SoundCloud link, through text, and it's I think it's always best to do anything creative with people that you get along with, personally. So many of the people that we've worked with, we're friends.
In addition to your work as a musician, you're also an accomplished artist. How do you balance the scales between art and music, and how do you create without trying to force the creation? Like, is it just whatever strikes you on whatever day, be it music or art?
I don't think I do a very good job of juggling. I always feel like, there's balls in the air that are being dropped. I'm sure most artists feel that way. One thing that I have learned, though, is to not force stuff. There's a day where I wake up and I kind of start chasing my tail, where I'm like, oh, I have to finish this art project, or I have to finish this music project. And I've learned to just, if I wake up one day and I'm in the mood to create art, and I just kind of flow with that. And if I get into this kind of flow state where for the next day or two I'm creating art, I feel like I get a lot more accomplished than trying to do multiple things on the same day. So I've kind of learned to just, trust my instincts, and, if you're in the mood to do something, kind of follow that, and don't force anything. I've learned that, you sit there, and if you're staring at a blank page for an hour, it's just, that's not the time. It's, something inspiration will strike in the shower, and then the next day I'll get in there and kind of, follow that. So you just gotta kind of go with the flow.
You've mentioned artistically that your art style is based in sort of the street style. Growing up in California, were you influenced by like the graffiti culture and iconic artists like Shepard Fairey, Obey, stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Shepard is an artist that I've followed for many years. I remember as a kid writing to him and asking for, some stickers or something, and he just sent me a brick of stickers, and I think I passed them out to all my friends at school. And I just growing up in LA, around the suburbs, you always see graffiti. That's always been something that kind of, has stuck with me, every time I go into the inner cities. And, just being on the coast, I think that we have a lot of influence in LA, as far as artists. It's kind of a mecca, people from all over the world to come here to create art, music, movies, and you just can't help but to just absorb that.
I think that area, as well as Southern California, sort of has something special with like all these, the graffiti crews like Can't Be Stopped and stuff like that. Like you can't help but, sort of get sucked into it and be inspired by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there work artistically that stands out for you as something that you're most proud of? Is there a piece that sort of transcended your work into a visual representation of the artist?
I think as a creative, I'm never happy with anything that I've done, and I'm always trying to create and get better at the crafts that I'm trying to master. And I don't think I'll ever truly master anything, but so I feel like my style is always evolving. It's something that I'm heavily influenced by the world around me, and there's a ton of great inspiration out there. So every time I step out in the world, I'm inspired by something different, and it kind of has these micro shifts on my career where I'm inspired by different things. So I don't know if there's anything that I would say is definitive of something of that I'm doing, but I'm always trying to work towards that as a final outcome.
So then tell us about your Skanker logo and how your art has sort of evolved into it with your brand.
So I grew up in Long Beach, and I grew up skating and surfing. I was around the water a lot. I ditched school to go surf, and when I was trying to put together a logo for my brand, I kind of looked inward and said what was I inspired by growing up, and I kind of combined two images. There's the anchor, which is representative of the ocean, and then the skateboard truck, which is representative of just the whole action sports. I think BMX was created in Long Beach. It's the skating culture, Dogtown, all that stuff was focused around Southern California. So that had a heavy influence on me growing up. I don't know if you ever got a chance to see that movie Mid 90s by Jonah Hill. And
okay, yeah,
that was like, I remember watching that movie and thinking like, this was like me growing up as a kid. I was a little Grom, and I'd go to the skate shops and, didn't know how to ollie. And, there weren't YouTube videos back then. So you just kind of had to go and embarrass yourself a few times and just hang out with friends. And, growing up, I was friends with Josh, and he was into skateboarding as well. So there was another connection that we had together, was music and skateboarding. So, I combine those two images, and they kind of fit well together. The trucks kind of inverted, kind of form the top of what an anchor kind of looks like anyway. So I think it's a solid logo that I've been running with for a few years now.
So tell us about the merch drops that you're doing through your website, because these things sell out pretty quickly. It's almost like a supreme drop at times, and like sort of how coveted they are.
Yeah, so I think one of the ethos of my brand is that I'd rather do small things that are done well, and keep the quality up, than to just put out a bunch of just garbage. I see a lot of chatter online sometimes where people buy this merch and it's just poor quality. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you go to a concert, you buy a t-shirt, you get home and you put on the shirt, and it just feels like sandpaper, and you end up never wearing it. So, and it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. That the next time that band comes to town, you're going to go see the band because you love the band, but you just don't want to wear the merch. And so, I was focusing on just getting stuff that people actually like to wear, and that they'll buy again and again and again. And it becomes kind of a staple of their wardrobe, or anything that I make. If there's something that we produce and we get feedback that the quality isn't good, we'll kind of revamp it and look for some of the better quality stuff. And I think that's what, kind of limiting, like the whole, the quantities. I think that helps out too. It makes, when people actually get something from the drop, they feel like they got something special.
And I think it also builds like a brand loyalty as well. It's like a brand you can trust, right? So you know that the
Absolutely.
quality is going to be good. You know exactly what you're getting and what you're in for. It's not
Hmm.
some mass-produced piece of garbage.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We really, I mean, because I'm not a full-time, merch company. So when I go to put something out, I really take the time to research it. I'll get samples, we'll get a whole bunch of garbage and we throw all that away. And we really kind of whittle it down to the best quality that we can find for the price point.
So that brings us into these limited edition 7 inches, which you do, which are really cool. In an age where everything's digital, walk us through this decision to go to like a physical 7 inch and go old school with this.
Yeah, so the vinyl demand has exploded in the U.S. over the last few years. I think I saw some stat that said, in 2006 there was less than 1 million sales for vinyl, and by 2023 there was almost 50 million. So that's a pretty significant increase on the demand of vinyl. And back in the day, I used to be a DJ. Josh used to DJ, and we just thought it was something really cool. I always admired, wow, man, like you've really made it if you have a record out, on actual vinyl. And so I think that's something that was always kind of on our short list. And we've been working hard with a lot of artists over the years, but we always produce music for other people, and those songs end up on these other artists' albums. And I think at some point we just said, you know what, we need to start making some music for ourselves. And we were really stoked to put out the first release. And I think plus it's really cool to just own something physical, like in this digital age, as you mentioned. It's everything's just on your phone, and if you're not by your phone, you feel like you don't own it. And this is something that you can actually, it's a piece of art. You can hang it up on your wall, you can collect it, and at the end of the day you can actually pull it out and put it on a record player and play it. So it's audible art, which I think is pretty cool.
There's something missing though about that sort of lost like romanticism about getting a record and experiencing it in a physical format, where it was like you'd break down the liner notes and the artwork and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. You'd really take the time to absorb it, and I think that's been missing from this generation, where it's like your phone's pinging you every Friday with another 15 brand new releases.
Yep, I totally agree.
So then, so let's talk about the first release. You have this Ras one track, Parachutes and Ladders. It sounds like a vintage Long Beach Dub All-Star song.
Yeah, I mean, that's the guy. Ras was a big vocal part of Long Beach Dub All-Stars back in the day. And, I think, Josh and I were able to put together a backing track that was very reminiscent of that classic Long Beach Dub All-Star sound. And then you just sprinkle Ras on the top of it, and it's very nostalgic. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of the sound that we were going for.
Even coming back, like I know that Josh has worked with them, and he put together that EP that he put out through Fat Mike's label, which is criminally underrated. That thing is such a great EP. So
yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. More people should listen to that.
So then on the second side of the vinyl, you have Pawn Shop, and the catalyst for this song was sort of discovering Milton J in a video covering Pawn Shop in his basement. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we our manager Mike, he kind of showed us this artist and said, hey, I'm going to start working with this guy, and what do you think of this? And we thought he was a very talented rapper, and we kind of just threw up a Hail Mary and tried to see if we can get Wailing Souls on the track. I think that Milton did a really good job of breathing life into a song that a lot of people are very familiar with, whether it's through the Wailing Souls version or the Sublime version.
And then to have it be a part of the Sublime tribute album, what was that like? Like that must have been cool to be such a part of like an iconic tribute record.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I grew up in Long Beach, so I went to backyard parties, in the day where Sublime was playing at. So, it's something that to do something that is kind of joining forces with them is really cool. I mean, they're kind of like the grandfathers of this whole scene, and it's really cool to see them back in action.
So to bring it back to the track for a second, what is it about that mix of him and Wailing Souls that blending the two artists together just seemed like the perfect mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the kind of the production that we put together was kind of breathed some new life into it. It kind of seems like this is it's kind of a weird concept, because you had the originators, Wailing Souls, that created the track, and then Sublime covered it, and then we kind of covered that version, but with the original people that did it. So it's kind of a weird, version of it. But yeah, I think again, Milton J did a really great job of adding some difference to it. It's by putting a rap in there, it definitely kind of made a new version of the song, which we're proud of.
Yeah, like amalgamating the Sublime and the Wailing Souls version to create something new, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what can you tell us about the next couple 7-inch releases that you got coming out through Left Coast Sound?
Okay, so I can't say too much because a lot of these are kind of still pending, but we've got one in the bag that we're coming out with next. It's going to feature Jackson from The Elevators and Carter from Surfer Girl, and we're looking at getting that out. It's probably going to be the whole Christmas thing kind of screws things up, but we might try to get that out around the first of the year, or a little bit after that, maybe in springtime. But same thing. It's going to be another 7-inch. The song came out great. Jackson and Carter are some incredible vocalists, so we're really stoked on how that came out. Also, our drummer Matt, he played drums on the song, and our horn section, Mark and Ruben from Dirty Heads, they are on the song as well. So we're pretty excited to get that out, and yeah, check back in a few months, and we'll be telling you all about it.
So how far in advance do you have these things planned out? Or is the 7-inch like an ongoing thing that's gonna go for quite some time? How do you go about mapping that out?
Yeah, we definitely want to make this a series. I think in between all the songs that we're doing for the other artists, we definitely want to hold back a few songs, for us, and kind of curate. That's one of the cool things about what we do is me and Josh, we kind of come up with this music, and then we take a listen to it, and we go, who would sound good on this? And we kind of start putting the feelers out, and you kind of start at the top, and you get told no a bunch, and you keep kind of moving down the list, and eventually you get to people that do a really good job. So yeah, we're just going to keep pumping these out as much as we can, and it's definitely going to be a collectible thing.
So do you have a bucket list? Who's on that bucket list of people that you want to collab with?
Damian Marley would be cool to do something with. I feel like he kind of spans that gap of hip hop and reggae. He's kind of right in the middle. Santi Gold would be awesome. I think she's starting to kind of tour again, so she kind of has that, again, kind of that like new wave meets reggae meets kind of funk and hip hop and everything. So I think maybe any one of those two artists would be great. It's a whole list. I can go on forever, but those would be some pretty cool artists.
Are you constantly sort of a finger on the pulse trying to check out who's next up and coming? Obviously you're touring, you're playing all these festivals. So does it offer you a lot of time to check out new music?
Yeah, the big summer tours are great, but it's kind of rinse and repeat every night. When we play these festivals, it's really cool to go and you get to check out new music. So me and some of the guys will kind of sneak off to the different stages, and if anyone's been on our radar, we'll definitely check it out. But yeah, and I'm we're constantly listening to what's on the DSPs, kind of what's breaking, what's new, and kind of keeping tabs of all that stuff. So it definitely adds to a brand new pool of young artists.
I think it's definitely a cool time in the reggae scene. Like you have all these bands that are sort of mixing a bunch of genres, and you have cool things happening. A lot of hip hop elements are coming in. Some people are taking it back, more roots reggae, and then you even have stuff like Aurora Wave, which is like he's mixing metal and reggae, which is crazy.
Yeah. Like you look at rock, right? When rock first came out, it all kind of sounded the same, and then over the years, it's diversified. So I think the reggae genre, any really good genre is going to do that, right? So reggae, there's so many different subgenres of reggae, and it's great. It all has its place, and I think that over the coming years you're going to see more and more diversification of it, which is awesome to hear.
Wrapping things up and to that point, Dirty Heads are going out with Jake Owen on a string of co-headlining shows. As an outsider, sonically, Dirty Heads and Jake Owen might seem like a 180 from each other.
Mhm.
The country but they're not really that different when you break it down and you get deep into it.
I think it's both barbecue music. It's not, after a long hard day of working, you want to come home and relax. And I think reggae, that's one of the things that's always drawn me to reggae, is just the relaxing vibe of it. And country is very similar. It's something where whether you're at the river or you're grilling up some steaks, it's something that you put on it, and it definitely sets a mood and a vibe, and it's something that people like to listen to when they unwind. So I think they are different genres, but I think that you'll notice that people are dancing the same, people are singing the same, and it's a lot similar than you actually think.
If you get on to like Broadway in Nashville, you're going to hear a Sublime track just the same way you're going to hear a Morgan Wallen track, right? It's like,
absolutely.
And to circle back to your earlier point, like I think that country is sort of having a breakout moment with guys like Hardy and Jelly Roll and all these guys sort of mixing genres and sort of breaking the glass barrier of what's considered country. There's no real genre lines anymore.
Yeah, I think the Grammys just created a new category that was like, one is like traditional country, and then one's more contemporary country, to kind of include all those people that are doing these like subgenres of country. So I think it's cool. Country, same thing. It's just like rock, just like reggae. Country is diversifying. So it just shows that it's nothing's slowing down, and it's all good music. So we're here for it.
So looking ahead to those shows, does it change up what you guys do in a live setting? Do you tailor the set list to new people that are going to be in the audience hearing Dirty Heads for the first time?
I think we definitely keep that in mind. We over the decades that now that we've been together, we've made some pretty diverse music, and I think we can kind of cater it a little bit to make sure that the people that are there to hear country aren't completely turned off by what we're doing. But at the end of the day, we are still the Dirty Heads, and we're going to bring it. So we're going to definitely include some of that harder hip hop stuff in there as well.
It's got to be exciting though to like completely be in front of a new audience and like have new people come to a show who have like there's probably going to be people at those shows who have no expectations of what you guys are going to sound like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and we like playing festivals like that too, is because you can pick up a lot of new fans. You see people that a lot of, you show up to a giant festival and that there's a lot of the audience that have never heard you. And to be able to halfway through the set kind of look out and see you kind of winning the crowd over, and people kind of pointing and saying, oh man, I got to like look these guys up or whatever. It's a really good feeling. So yeah, we're stoked.
We have a segment called Origin Story here, where we do a deeper dive into like larger songs. I know you had written "Lay Me Down" on bass. What do you remember about that recording of that track? And was there a moment that you thought that this song like is going to be larger than life?
So that song came about. That was the first song that I had ever recorded with for Dirty Heads. I think I just joined the band a couple months before that, and we met Rome, or at least I did that day. We all went over to Duddy's house, and we were hanging out in the backyard. And I remember bringing over my laptop and connecting a mic, and just kind of, we had a recording session coming up at the Hurley Studios in a couple days. And so we needed to write something. And I think we were just leaving for Warped Tour, so we were going to be gone all summer, but we needed to have something new out. So we went over to Duddy's, and we just kind of hung out in the backyard, and the guys were jamming, and I took some of those crude recordings home that night, and I kind of added some beats to it and sent it back out to everybody, just so everybody could write to it, because at the time there wasn't a lot of lyrics. There was some melodies going on, but nothing really substantial. And we showed up in the studio a couple days later, and everyone had their parts written, and I was able to kind of create some bass stuff, and we went in and knocked it out. And yeah, I think right away we didn't know what to expect with that song. It was a good song, but we didn't think that it would get as big as it did. I think we were kind of lucky to be right place at the right time. I mean, Sublime had just announced that they were getting back together after a 16-year hiatus. So there was a lot of attention focused around them and their new singer Rome. and we were able to present to radio this new version, and it's the first time anyone ever heard what Rome was going to sound like. So I think that definitely added to the story and added to the push. And I think at the end of the day, it's still just a good song. So, radio picked it up and people actually liked it. I think that, the story would have only gotten you so far if people kind of heard it and said, oh, I don't like this song, and were dismissive about it. But at the end of the day, it still had to be a good song. So I think people, I think it was #1 for 11 weeks at alternative radio, which was pretty insane for us. I don't think that we ever thought that it was going to get that big, but we're happy that it did.
Was there a moment where you're like, hey, this song's a monster, this is bigger than we ever imagined?
I think we were just about to go out on the road with Sublime with Rome for the first tour, and it was right at that point where we stepped up from a van and trailer of just driving ourselves around the country to jumping up to a bus. And I think that's when people always think this stuff happens overnight. It doesn't. It was definitely a longer process. But I think that was one of those big benchmarks for us where we were like, oh man, like we're going to a bus, like we're making it, like we're actually doing it. So that was a pretty cool moment to hear that when that happened.
You mentioned Warped Tour, and I had a chance to talk to the guys from Pepper about this, but they were saying, like, back when they were on the tour, they were help assembling the stage, and Warped Tour is back. Do you have any memories from that Warped Tour era? It seems like something was missing now that we haven't had Warped Tour for such a long time, but it was just sort of a special era of music, I think.
I remember our tour manager at the time driving us to the wrong venue the first day of Warped Tour.
You wonder why nobody was there?
Yeah, we so when you play Warped Tour, I don't know how it is now, but back in the day you would get this little Warped Tour Bible, and it had all the shows and all the information and kind of some driving directions and everything that you needed to know to kind of keep up with the tour. And we were driving ourselves. We were in a van and trailer, so we weren't on a bus and could just sleep through the night. And we didn't play the whole thing. I think we jumped on after a couple shows, and there were 2 New Jersey shows, and somehow our tour manager got it mixed up and just probably flipped to the first page and saw New Jersey and was like, oh yeah, our first show's New Jersey, let's go. And we were pulling up to this giant arena, and we get there and we're really early and we don't really see anything happening, but we were early, so whatever. We pull up to a security guard and we're like, hey, we're playing here tonight. And the guy kind of looked at us and was like, wow, what's it like to be opening up for the Crew? And we were like, what? He's like, yeah, you guys are opening up for Motley Crue tonight, right? And I guess Motley Crue was playing at that stadium that night. So, after a quick look at the Bible, we quickly realized that we were at the wrong venue. So we were late for the first day, which anyone that's ever played at Warped Tour knows that you cannot be late. If you're late, they get mad at you, and you get the worst booth possible. You get the worst time slot of the day, and it took us a while to kind of shake that kind of dogma of us doing that stuff. So
yeah. Didn't they draw like names out of a hat to see it's a set times? Like you'd have to wake up that morning.
You had to be there that morning. So I remember, we were in a van and trailer. So we would break down the night before and get in the van and trailer, and whoever was the least drunk had to drive. And we would drive all through the night and just to pull into the parking lot the next morning. And I think they started passing out the time slots at like 7 or something like that. So 7 or 7:30. So if you weren't there, they would kind of take note of that, and you would get kind of screwed over the next day. So we made sure that after that first day to definitely be on time. But yeah, it was, some of those drives were gnarly, because they were all in big major markets, which were, the US is a big country. It's, they were like 10, 11 hour drives every night.
So to wrap things up and bring it back, you have this upcoming 7-inch series coming out. You've got the merch. You're writing songs. What's next for you and Left Coast Sound?
Okay, well, so for Dirty Heads, we are in the studio right now, doing another album. I think we all fly out to Nashville in about a week to kind of finish that up, and we're looking at maybe releasing something Definitely this next year. Probably be around springtime, kind of getting everything ready for summer. So be prepared for a new album this next year. For Left Coast Sound, we are just busy, just cranking away. You know, we're working on that next vinyl project. I have to do the artwork, so I'm designing the cover right now currently. And then in general for the Foral brand, I'm busy just doing a whole bunch of art every day and coming up with new products. I'm going to be doing one of the posters for our Florida run with Jake Owen. So I'm not going to tell you which one it is. So you got to come to all of them. But there will be one available coming in October. And yeah, just every day I chase my tail constantly with all the stuff that I got going. So it's a lot of work.
Well, a lot of these projects are super cool. I love what you guys are doing with the merch drops, everything like that. So I definitely think there needs to be more of this within music, and I love it. So
yeah, it seems like it's creating music for the sake of art. We don't have any timelines, deadlines. We're our own labels, so there's no one breathing down our neck telling us that we have to do something or something's got to sound a certain way. It's literally just making music that Josh and myself want to listen to. And I think that, if we like it, hopefully some other people like it too.
Well, cool. I definitely think everybody should check out these 7 inches. Definitely check the website. There's a lot of cool stuff that you got going on. So I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah. I thank you so much to the Pier for taking time out of you guys' busy schedule to do the interview. So I appreciate you guys.